Recently, the ACLU has started a petition to ask the Supreme Court to declare the all-male draft to be unconstitutional. But their position is that it's unconstitutional because it doesn't require women to register for the draft as well. This has come up periodically in the last couple of years. I made a video about it, maybe 4 years ago now? A while ago. And I probably said things very similar to what I'm going to say today. But I find the ACLU's position that they want women added to the draft to be a little confusing. I think we can all agree, just as a matter of accuracy, that the ACLU is a left-leaning organization, and that typically the left is anti-war and pro civil liberties and consent and allowing people to be free of interventions in their personal life. But in this case, the draft is, if I were to describe it accurately, a form of slavery. Obviously, it feels silly to have to say this, but slavery in the earlier days of the United States, where black people and other groups were made to work on farms or other labor-intensive jobs, and they were owned by other people, that is by far a more egregious evil than the draft is. But on the continuum of abducting someone's body and forcing them to perform things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, the draft is on that continuum. It is a form of slavery, and I think that would be pretty difficult to argue against. And if anybody who is pro-draft was told that position, they would likely try to justify it by saying that it's needed, that its existence is justified on utilitarian grounds. But I am not a utilitarian, so I don't care about those arguments. On a related note, it's strange how I feel in the past 20 years the priorities of the left have changed. They were the things that I described earlier, like anti-war, pro-civil liberties, women's rights, gay rights, all those sorts of things. But I feel it's morphed into more of a focus on egalitarianism, a focus on determining what is right and moral by how it's applied to the sexes or to different groups. If everything is applied equally, well, then that is moral and just, and that is what we should go with. And I feel that, while I don't know the personal preferences and philosophies of the individuals in the ACLU, I can imagine that just by looking at this this position here and other positions by the left in general, they're more interested in evenly distributing outcomes than they are in actually assessing if something is moral or not, or if it's right or wrong just on the face of its action. And so here, instead of looking at the draft and going, well, this violates body autonomy, this puts somebody in a position where they may die, where they may have to kill others, where they may likely get irreversibly damaged from the war that they would have to fight in, PTSD, shell shock, dismemberment, injury. And instead of saying, oh, this is a pretty terrible thing, let's get rid of it, they decided, well, we want to do that to women too, which is a strange impulse from where I sit. In addition, while I feel that the draft is immoral based on what it is, on what it requires of people, I think it's interesting that people are willing to grant the government more power in a realm in which they've proven that they are incapable of managing or flexing that power in a responsible or not ethical. They just aren't. They've proven that they are unable to exercise the powers that they have currently, but we're willing to give them more of that power just because, they're the government and who else is going to have it? Or, they're the only ones that could wield this power ethically, even though the power shouldn't exist. If we look at every modern occurrence of the draft, some people aren't going to like this, but World War II, that was still immoral because it was hijacking the lives of men to go fight in a war that we could probably argue didn't threaten the United States all that much. Vietnam, Korea, all the conflicts in the 70s, and I think those are the primarily the times the draft have been used. But what do those do? They were highly unpopular at the time. A lot of people died for nothing in places far away from home, in terrible conditions. A lot of people came back very damaged. But we've kind of forgotten about that. And then a little more recently, the war on terror and the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, all of the various overseas contingency plans. What an interesting euphemism. That's from the Obama presidency when they tried to sugarcoat their plans to be active in the Middle East with the military. But since 9/11, I think we can all, or most people can agree, that the wars were a mistake. They were a huge waste of blood, money. It made the Middle East less peaceful and more violent. There's an open slave trade in, was it Yemen? I forget. But a couple years ago, ISIS was killing a ton of people in the Middle East, including Christians. There's open slave trade in the Middle East now. There's a lot of chaos. Estimates say that up to perhaps 1 million people died in the Middle East over the time that the United States was fighting its wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were still kind of there, but it's quieted down a lot. But this organization, the federal government, which has waged this costly, endless failure of a war, we want to give them the ability to hijack people's lives for their foreign policy ends, or to, fight wars that, let's be honest, have not involved the safety of the United States. I don't think the draft has ever been used to defend the United States. And then we could even look at how we treat our veterans now. The VA has been experiencing controversy after controversy about how poorly the vets are treated. Illness rates, death rates, how long it takes to get an appointment. It's notoriously poorly run. It's notoriously inefficient. Nobody likes going to it. And that's how they treat the people who fight in their wars. And a lot of people who use the VA now are the vets from the drafts in the 70s. So even on a utilitarian or just a practical look at the near past, the draft has been a complete failure. And it's counterintuitive, and it's insanity to imagine that we should give an organization that conducts war poorly and has a lot of bad incentives. We all know about the military-industrial complex and how Raytheon and all these other producers of the tools of war make a ton of money off the United States government. And there's definitely an incentive for politicians to support wars so that their lobbyists get more money and that whole thing. So it really hurts to see an organization that prides itself on civil liberties advocating for the ability of the federal government to enslave more of the population in order to further whatever perverse goals that they might have. So this is a bad policy, it's bad ethically, it's bad practically, it's bad historically, and the ACLU should feel bad. All right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.